Hello everyone, and welcome back to the campaign diary for my Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign, Aracséa edition. In today's session, the party rifle through an exiled Arcanist's house, almost completely thwart a boss battle, and meet an interesting personality. For those keeping track of time, it is currently the 7th of Caerldin on the Araxean calendar, with only one game day passing from last session by the end of this session, session 7. This was a deceptive session in a sense that while not much actually happened, people seemed to really enjoy it, and there were some cool little moments that happened. And also we were fortunate enough to have Mutiny's player back for this one, which was good. Kind of reaffirmed and put aside some worries I had about that whole thing. So we start this session where we left off, being tied, the characters being tied to chairs before this black-skinned tiefling clad in plate armor called Bane. Reyna makes a show of struggling and getting rowdy and trying to break free, acting quite brash for the situation, as she usually does. But Mutiny notices there are perhaps like another 8 people shrouded in the shadows in this captain's quarters style room. Yeah, hidden in the shadows. If you guys don't remember what happened at the end of the last session, I recommend just going back to the last campaign diary just to get caught up. Bane went on to explain that he didn't intend to harm them, and that the speaker is quite eager to speak with them, but just wants to like a little show to see how good they actually are. As you might soon become aware, the White Mask is an organisation which kind of excels at a touch of the dramatic. The White Mask is the group that the bandits in the area and the speaker and everyone seems to be affiliated with. They're an organisation originally from Vrosnia and are a mix between like a bandit syndicate and like an information organisation. Their call sign being, of course, the White Phantom of the opera style masks and white gloves and things like that. More on that later, perhaps. Bane goes on to tell the party about the task. That a traitor has fled the employ of the speaker, a Georgian Arcanist by the name of Gora Anvalant. I make Stronus do an intelligence roll to see if he recognises the name, and he does. He recognises it as someone that used to work in Mount Minrock military R&D, for lack of a better term for it, and he specialised in Goromancy. So this Gora has been helping the White Mask with identifying various artifacts and magical items that could come into their possession, but yeah, has since gone rogue, stealing one of the speaker's precious gems, a sapphire eye. Bane explains that they have already searched his house and not managed to find him or the item. He is certain that they would be aware if he left Targos, and so they're a bit of a loss of where Gora has disappeared to. Bane tells them that the speaker is a resourceful and well-informed man and probably has a lot of answers for the party's questions as of late, and offers that as a reward. The party agree after a little bit of back and forth questioning, and Bane gives them each a pick-me-up tincture to undo the effects of whatever spell or poison that they are under, and then begins to leave. Bane informs them that when they're ready to speak to the speaker after they've got the Sapphire Eye or found Gora, that they are to go back to the Phantom Diver and say the passphrase, which is "It is a fine night for an opera." Kind of leads into that whole dramatic White Mask thing. The next day, after they head back to the Phantom Diver after that thing to go to sleep, they head on over to Gora's abode, which is in like the northern side of Targos, and they discuss a few things on the way, namely about the election in Goodmead, with the general consensus being in that no one wants to become the speaker there, which is a shame because there'll be some good things that might come out of that later on, which we might discuss in another video, and maybe on the election day video. And they talk about the possibility of discovering the link between the 3 major disappearances, and we got a hint of Stronus telling his story, basically to the extent where he said, "Oh, I don't want to lead people. I've led people before. I don't want to lead them again." And when they pried, he kind of just said, "I don't want to talk about it," and they left it there. So they head to Gora's abode. They arrive there, and like Bane said, they found it turned over and thoroughly searched through. Gora's home is like a small circular building that sits on the, like I said, on the northern side of Targos, quite close to the northern wall, actually, near the coast. And inside there are only like 2 rooms separated with a wall that bisects the home. In the front of the abode is like a makeshift study with papers and books thrown all over the place, and in the back are just basically some sacks of grain and brewing equipment. There's a desk at the front that I described to them as looking like a scholarly kind of setup with inks, papers, and things that look like they belong on like a wizard's workspace. However, Stronus quickly deduces that most of the stuff there was useless and kind of figures out that it looks like it might have been more for show. And then, yeah, they all commented about the lack of a bed in any of these 2 rooms as well, and thought that was a bit strange, and figured there must be more to this house than meets the eye. So they proceeded to look around. They went outside to like this nearby garden, and again, Stronus, with his like Jorgen stone sense, was able to find a hidden tunnel amongst the stone in the pathway. They spend some time discussing excuse me, spend some time discussing who should go down, and before Stones finally slides down at this like small shaft that opened up. At the bottom was a circular like room about the size of the house upstairs, and in the room was a few things. There was a bed, a desk, a mirror, a bookcase, and a rug or like a tapestry that hung on the wall opposite of the entrance from the shaft. On the desk was a journal that was kind of encoded in some way. I describe it as being like using like Dwarven script, but some of the letters are in the wrong place, and like some of the characters are swapped around, and some of the way the script is written is wrong and things like that. But within time and with a high intelligence check, they are able to decipher the gist of its contents and discover a number of things, including the speaker's name, which is Nerth Merthil, and that Gora may not have been working alone, as it's hinted that he had a contact within Minrock, Mount Minrock, and that someone from the inside was feeding him information about various expedition sites and where to find artifacts. Obviously, using that information to aid the White Mask and to get him closer to the speaker to do his deeds. It also included blueprints, or more like a formulaic write-up. I kind of described to Stronus that it's not necessarily like pictures and diagrams. It's more of a set of arcane like formulae that kind of translate to building a golem. He's not proficient in he's not a golem person, so he doesn't know how to interpret them, but he does recognize them as like a form of arcane formula. I liken it to like how you'd write sheet music and then that becomes music, which is like a completely different medium. It's like written word that would become a golem, but you have to understand how to be able to read that written formula, and that's how I kind of describe it to him. He did manage to deduce from it, however, that with his limited knowledge on golems, that normally they require a arcane power source. However, these blueprints seem to be running on precious gems instead of a power source, and like Gora was working on some sort of variant there that could run off of gemstone. It also noted that Gora had been stealing from the White Mask for quite some time, so this was obviously why Gora was trying to get in close with like these artifacts and such. They move on from there to the bookcase, where there are rows of like technical manuals and magic science textbooks, and nothing really of note. They did find one fictional book in there, which I kind of implied was like a nod to the Drizzt novels, and I don't know if anyone's ever read those. At this point, Mutiny had made their way down to the chamber, while Raina and Azazel, the polar bear, stayed above ground to keep watch. Raina actually, while up there, proceeded to tie some ribbons to Azazel's fur and wrote and sang a song about Stronus being a smelly dwarf in a hole for some reason. It was very similar to the Bilbo Baggins, Leonard Nimoy kind of song. It's a shame I don't actually have a copy of that. If I do manage to find that some of the lyrics he wrote, I will throw it up on screen. They then continued to investigate things in the chamber as Mutiny and Stronus downstairs. Firstly, the mirror, which they were kind of paranoid would reveal like a hidden creature or something out of place in the room. However, with their low investigation check, they could only deduce it was an... Actually, no, it was not a bad investigation check, I remember. It was like a 15 they got or something, but it's still not good enough to figure out what was actually going on with it. So they could only deduce a standing mover. However, if they rolled 20, they would have noted that there were some inert arcane runes on the sides of the mirror, which we'll come back to later. Stronus begins to ritually cast detect magic as Mutiny approaches the rug on the wall, and you might have guessed is instantly grappled by it, as it was of course a rug of smothering that protected a hidden doorway behind it. Combat ensues. Stronus's detect magic is like broken within an instant, and initiative is rolled. It was a simple fight, purely designed to weaken them a tad before the next room. Raina spent most of her time trying to fit down the chute. In the end, not much damage was taken, but it was enough to kind of shock them out of investigative mode. The thing with like a rug of smothering is that it doesn't really do any damage apart from like on the player's turn. It's not really a direct damage dealer. The more prevalent risk is obviously the PCs harming each other when it is got someone grappled because of its damage transfer ability. And of course the other threat is suffocation, but it's only got a DC 13 strength check to escape it, and it's quite easy to prefer most PCs to break out. At any rate, they do defeat the rug and they proceed on to the next room, almost forgetting about this room entirely, enticed by progress. And in this next room, after about 100 foot of corridor that's magically lit by these blue sconce lights, was a large 80 foot in diameter circular room. Around its edges on the right were a number of tools and work tables, along with like a desk and the drawers and some writing materials. There was also an alchemical table and various other bits on the right hand side. On the left there were basically just a bunch of storage containers, glass cabinets, shelves that housed various gemstones and ores and things like that. In the centre of the room lay a large rug, and opposite the entrance, hung on the wall, was a slightly larger than medium-sized mechanical humanoid. It was like a golem of a mismatch of metals that stood broad and sturdy with a great sword attached to one of its hands and a large crossbow on the other. Not too dissimilar to like a dwarven colossus in Skyrim or something like that. In its chest there was a slight light blue thrum, a glow coming from like this small gem-like object embedded about 8 inches inside its armoured chest. It was, of course, dormant for now, and the players immediately became nervous and wary that something would set it off. However, first of all, they are more wary of the circular rug, and as a precaution decided to chuck an axe at it just in case that rug also comes to life. Rennie gets out a hand axe, lands a hit on the rug, and it's just a normal rug. However, she did throw it with such force that it did manage to dislodge the rug slightly, revealing like faint chalk marks underneath the rug. Stronus casts Mage Hand, uses it to lift the rug up, and everyone is still kind of mega cautious about entering the room properly, so they're kind of like at the door. Underneath this rug, with the chalk, is like basically a teleportation circle, but parts of the rock underneath it are like cracked. Large parts of the chalk lines are scuffed or missing. Stronus, not being 100% familiar with teleportation circles and that kind of magic, isn't able to identify the location sigil, and even if he could, I do not think he'd recognise the location, as it leads to a hidden location in the Frostgales, and to people that this Gora has been working with, namely. And I'm going to reveal to you now, it's namely the people that are actually responsible for these disappearances that the party have been tasked with discovering. And this, yes, finally, this is where I'm going to spill the beans for you guys and start to connect some of the threads that I've hinted at in previous episodes. This will also act as like a somewhat large sweep that will cover the general end for the campaign, as these people more or less are directly linking to what I have planned at the end. Anyway, on to it, shall we? Major spoilers ahead. There are 4 people primarily responsible for the disappearances of these 3 people, of Trig, Sigurd, and Terence. They are all these four people are all members of like a arcane society in a land far to the south, south of the Vindel Wildlands, south of Rosnia, and namely the Dwani Freelands is where they're from. They are called the Azarime Assembly. Uh, it is to most people it is just a magic university, like at its forefront, but it does have a more sinister purpose. I kind of liken it a bit to the what's it called? The Cerberus Assembly in Critical Role Campaign 2, and what's that other organisation in that other game? I can't remember right now. But yeah, it has like a more sinister purpose, and people are the higher ups. The higher you climb up the ladder, there's like a more of a secret society side to it, and they're somewhat amoral to achieve their goals. You know, there's no limit to what they will do to achieve their ends. So yeah, there's four very powerful wizards, each with their own specialization, are in and around the Frostgales in order to uncover the secrets of an ancient city they believe to be frozen beneath the Reged Glacier. It has long been rumoured amongst magical societies that they're maybe home of an intact Charnor city. Now, Charnor is a race that predates most of the modern ruins. Like, it predates Jorgen stuff, it predates Ainari stuff, and Ainari stuff is like the precursor Elven races, and that's basically as far as the history will go. For most people, they consider Ainari to be the ancient history of the world. But there is another race that was before, and that's the Charnur, and it's most people consider the Charnur to be a myth. Really, they don't really think it to be true at all. And yeah, the Charnor had access to vast magic far beyond what is achievable nowadays, and these wizards believe they can achieve this level of power inside this city and use it to essentially bring out a magocracy and rule the world through their enhanced magic. So why take these people, you ask? And like, why take these three scientists and thinker kind of guys? Well, like I said, they are scientists and thinker kind of guys. And if you remember back to that note that they had been writing, those letters that they had been writing to each other, or the one letter they found, they were talking about some sort of discovery. And well, basically, these three had already been researching the Red Air Glacier, and essentially they're already kind of expertise, you know, they've already got some sort of expertise in this field, and the wizards are just captured them. Why do the work when they can just get someone else to do it for them? Let's go through these wizards. So these wizards, who the party will have no idea about for some time, I don't think, they consist of Perfidy, who is an albino female tiefling. She is a divination and transmutation specialist. There is Imperius Celasta, who is a Judican male. Judica is a nation to the east of Vrosnia. It's kind of like to the southeast of the Frostgales. And Imperius actually showed up in in my single-player Armin campaign, the Campaign 1 stuff. And yeah, that's another character that one of the PCs in this game might recognise. Not one of the PCs, one of the players of the PCs might recognise the name. And he's an evoker and abjurer specialist. He's like very combat focused. He's also an expert in Ainari ruins and history and things like that. There is Relsaram Kree, who is a Vrosnian male. You know, the blue elves. He's an illusion and enchantment specialist. He's very covert and good at doing secretive things. There is Corval Velena, who is a dragonborn female, and she is proficient in necromancy and conjuration. Shall I spill the full beans here? I think I will spill the full. So this Corval Velena, it's actually a famous. Well, I was gonna say famous. She's not like well known, but she is a black undead dragon called Nethrogil the Possessed Deceiver. She has been cursed and is stuck in some sort of dragonborn form, and it's a curse that she can't break. And this Corval Velena, her goal is actually to uncover the magic beneath to undo her curse. She's kind of in the lines of portraying the other four members. Of course, no one knows about this, that she's actually this undead dragon stuck in this form. I don't know if it'll even come out in the campaign. It might be a campaign 2 thing or a campaign 3 thing. But yeah, that's some background information there. One of those names, by the way, you might even recognise yourself, Relsaram Kree. If you have caught out who this was, well done to you. He was the Rosnian elf that was burned in East Haven. But just think about it. Notice his specializations: illusion magic and enchantment magic. Making the people walk off to the speak, and like that whole speaker's dilemma. You know, getting like kind of being phased out. It makes it to make more sense if he was behind it. And illusion magic. I wonder what that could mean. What possibilities could that create? Was that even him burning on the thing? Was it just an illusion? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. So yeah, those are the 4 people leaving to uncover this Charnor city. Now there is an even further thing about this Regard Glacier and this city. However, that is massive spoilers, and I don't think we're quite ready to get to the stage where you're going to know the true purpose of this entire mission. And when I say entire mission, it's my mission. It's not any player's mission. I don't think anyone knows, apart from Aurora, the person responsible for the Rime. I think she's the only one who probably actually knows what is beneath that glacier. But let's just put it this way: it's not what it seems. I'll just leave some questions in there. The only hint I will give to you guys is look at the names of places on the map. That's more or less it. That could kind of give you a hint. Anyway, let's move on. So yes, Gora Anvalant was working with the Azraim Assembly for reasons unknown, or at least like to get access to certain things. I don't know. I'm not too sure, but he's been working with them, and so this teleportation circle perhaps allowed the Azraim to get to him, or vice versa. Who knows? They won't ever know. So let's move on. Let's go back on track. So the party, back to this. Search both sides of the room. Careful not to stand on the chalk, suspecting that getting close to the golem will alert it, which they were correct. The chalk specifically was the trigger, or that area where the chalk was. On the right, they find these 4 brooches, which they later identify as brooches of sending. They're sort of like a silvery feather kind of design with like a turquoise kind of gem pressed inside it. They identify them as brooches of sending, and now they are basically able to communicate over like an infinite distance, even across planes, with each other, as long as they have them on them. I explained to them that finding 4 of these linked together is an extremely rare and like rare occurrence. Normally only find like 2 together, and they're like crude stones. And to kind of sow that seed of paranoia, that is kind of one of these themes I want to bring out of this Rime and the Frostmaiden campaign, is that whoever made these was, if they were capable of making 4, I kind of tell this to Stronus, then they're definitely capable of making more than just 4, and why wouldn't you? So there may be more connected to these, and of course they start worrying about that, wondering whether they should use them or not. And I will tell you guys that there is indeed one more. Gora had made them for the assembly. Of course, there's 4 of them, it kind of makes sense. So they can coordinate their efforts more easily. And he made himself a 5th one in secret to spy on them. Again, to achieve his own means. That's who knows what they are. We'll come back to the brooches in a sec. So let's continue on this room. They checked the left side of the room for signs of the sapphire. That's the side with the ore and things, but don't find anything, and instead resigned to the fact that the sapphire must be in the golem's chest. You knew this, listeners, listening to it the moment I described it. I'm sure the players did. They're just kind of, just doing their due diligence and just checking out the room. And then starts the moment where the boss battle is nearly entirely thwarted by some genius, well, not genius, but by some lucky Stronus play. So he casts Mage Hand and says he wants to use it to extract the stone from the golem's chest. I basically say, okay, well, you're going to need to do like 3 skill checks to make this work. First off, you'll need to make a perception check because you're like 80 feet away from it. If you don't want to get closer, you'll have to judge exactly what you're doing from that distance. He goes, okay, so he rolls well, rolls really well actually. So I was like, okay, right, move on to the next check, and I say to him, right, okay, next is going to be an investigation. I know Stronus is quite good at investigation, so this should be fine. And of course, he rolls quite well here as well, and this is more or less just to find the right space while he's over there, and so he succeeds that. And then finally we make it to the last check, which I make a dexterity check, and to kind of maneuver the hand in such a way to not like touch the side of this coil inside the golem's chest. Basically, I make him play a game of like Operation, and let's put it this way, yeah, he rolled bad, he rolled poorly, and he made the buzzer go off, more or less, with a very poor roll. I go straight to initiative. They fight what Stronus identifies as like a variant on the Valiant class golem, which is used in the Jorgen military. And they start this fight with this golem. So the golem was an interesting fight. I designed it based off the Knight stat block from the monster manual, and added some more hit points and damage and condition immunities and things like that. I also added like a mode shifting kind of mechanic. Essentially, the golem on each of its turns would shift to a different mode. It would go for the same 3 modes every turn, and each mode gave it different boons, and like its magic light would change, so you could identify which mode it's in. It had a red mode, which let it do an extra d6 damage. It had a blue light kind of mode, which gave it like a counter attack as a reaction if it got hit. And it had a green light mode, which gave it to resistance to magical damage and immune to things like magic missile. It was a fun fight. Some people went down, as the golem did a lot of damage to each of them. Azazel, the polar bear, did amazingly in this thing. I was rolling for it at the time, and I just wouldn't stop rolling above a 15. It was great. The golem had 18 AC. Azazel had like a +4, I think, to hit, and yeah, it was going great. Even Mutiny has like a +7 to hit with her longbow, was having a hard time hitting, and there's me with a +4 and Azazel just hacking away at this golem. They eventually figure out the boss's mechanic. I think Stronus's player had the most fun with that, like figuring out, he seemed to really enjoy that kind of complex boss mechanics, and I've kind of just testing out things. I definitely want to do more stuff like that in the future, make things a bit more elaborate, maybe use the environment as well to do things, and I could just, he figured it out, adjusted his methods accordingly, and they were all able to kill it and retrieve the sapphire eye from within. So, before we move on to them returning to the speaker, I'm going to tell you a few things that they've missed or they could have learned in the abode. First of all, if Stronus's magic detect had gone off while in that other room, they would have found that the mirror they would have found out more information about the mirror, the inert magical runes on them, and like what the kind of magic was. If he had rolled really well on an Arcana check or something, he would have found out it was in fact a arcane doorway. Stronus does say actually in the other room that Gora couldn't have escaped via the teleportation circle because it was broken from this side. So wherever he is still very much a mystery to them, and of course discovering the mirror as like an arcane portal may have enlightened them a little bit to the possibility of his whereabouts. As for where he actually is, I'm not too certain myself. I have some ideas, but I kind of want to leave them open just in case I want to bring him back in another, at a later stage. It's kind of like this returning personality that they might know. The second thing that comes to mind is that there were some potions on the alchemy table in the workshop that they could have nabbed, but I think Stronus actually ended up pushing them to the floor and using the table as like cover against the golem during the fight, so they missed out on that. I think, if I remember rightly, there was like some healing potions, there was some resistance and an invisibility potion there, but they've missed out on those. Never mind. So yeah, let's move back on. They head out of Gora's abode and back to the Phantom Diver. And this, by the way, is where Stronus identifies the brooches. And actually, they have a very long discussion about who, if any, could be, if anyone could be on the other side if there were more people. tied to these brooches, and Lorena for some reason basically tries to make like this long speech and kind of like tries to seduce whoever might be there on the other side, and like tries to entice them for a meetup. Because I know you get to speak to this Gora and bring them back to the speaker and things like that. Of course, no one responds. I don't know if Gora was listening, or I'm not too sure, but no one responds to it because as I want to make them think like there's only four people, and I think they've kind of got the idea that it's only four. But of course there is a fifth, so that's being nice and interesting. Last, it kind of like wasted a bit of 10 minutes of the time. I couldn't help but feel kind of embarrassed by the whole thing, and I think the other players were like, "Oh, come on, really? Is this going on long enough?" Anyway, moving on. They rest up a bit, take a short rest, I think, take a little bit of damage. They meet with Owen Tarsonell of the Phantom Diver, who's the like grumpy barkeep. They use the passphrase. And from that they are all led into like an underground tunnel that connects to beneath the dilapidated speaker's house, which is like a couple 100 feet away. And there they meet Speaker Nerth Merthil, who is like a very ostentatious character. He has like a lavish crushed velvet long robe, like silvery mascara over his eyes. He's a Vrosnian elf, so he has like bluish skin, longish ears. He holds like a Cruella de Vil style cigarette holder thing and a glass of wine. He kind of sort of like a cross between the gentleman and like Gilmore, from Gilmore's Goods in like Critical Role and things like that. And the style was like somewhat reminiscent of like the guys in the sexual zone of like Hunger Games, and like some people, if you played Cyberpunk, kind of have that kind of lavish kind of look, kind of like styled after that kind of thing. And also a little bit of, there's a guy in Dimension 20's game, I think there's an orc or something that kind of inspired this character as well. And anyway, yeah, they meet Nerth, and in the room there's like rose curtains draped everywhere. It's a bit like a Renaissance brothel, but a really nicely well done one, and like without any of the workers, obviously. There's like a fine, sweet smelling smoke around, and like various patrons are like smoking on hookah pipes and things like that. There are no chairs around, but there are like tons of these plush cushions and like sort of these beanbag things on the floor, where the speaker invites them to sit, and they continue to discuss things. They hand him the sapphire eye, which he adds to a collection of gemstone eyes he keeps in a small box that Shonus manages to get a little peek of. And Nerth engages them in a sort of like back and forth 20 questions kind of deal. I think he gives them 5 questions they can ask, I think. And basically for every one that they ask him, he'll get to ask one back. They ask about Merrin. Stronus asks what's happened in Mount Moonrock. Nerth kind of identifies that he's been away for some time. Raina asks, I believe she asks about her people, because Nerth also recognizes she's been away from some time. He even mentions that she'd been on the aiding, so he like that hint that he knows a little bit about each of their traditions. And yeah, he mentions that he's seen some of them in Bremen, and that there's a camp on the Shangan River with some people in. And they asked a few other like non-important things that I can't really remember. I'll tell you the most interesting things they learned, namely about what's going on in Mount Minrock. So Mount Minrock, as you may have remembered, has been shut to all bar the highest echelons in the hierarchy. This is new information. So you and I both know that, of course, this makes sense because Vulcan is out and walking around. The Frostgales, Vulcan being Zariaz's, the alter perception thing, and is his head of the Arcanum, so of course he's out and about doing stuff, and the players don't know about any of that, obviously, but it should be a thought that crosses Stronus' mind. The higher-ups are allowed to leave. It's very possible that Vulcan is around, and yeah, basically the mountain is shut due to the vault inside the city. Their massive wealth has been completely emptied. The vault contains the city's supply of Starvane, which is a resource. It's kind of like a precious metal / gem / thing. It's a resource that is used to make oath glass, which is essentially a substance that is better than mithril, better than adamantine, all that sort of thing. It's like the Jorgens made trained resource, as Mount Rinrock is a huge supplier of, Starvein and metal. And the notion of this sort of terrifies Jonas, as he didn't realise how bad things were. Because this is like a big deal. Like the massive supply of dwarven material just disappeared from the mountain. I could tell you who has got it and where it's going, but we're going to leave that a bit of a mystery today. But just as a little breadcrumb, you already know the person who has it. You might not necessarily know what it's for. If you've read the book, you can make if you've read the Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign, you could probably make a educated guess at what's happening with it, and kind of link it to a person who may be interested in doing that sort of thing. Anyway, that's very vague. As for the questions about Merrin, yes, one of the other reasons they come to Targos, the speaker sort of dismissed him as like, he doesn't really work for me, and he said he would arrange to have him removed should it be a problem for the party, and the party are like, no, we'll just see how it plays out. One of them makes like an insight check, and they get the impression that the speaker is kind of dismissive of him because he's not really doing the way the White Mask should do things, but it's also kind of, they get a hint of neither is the speaker, if that makes sense. Like the speaker has his own goals here that are not necessarily attached to the White Mask. They don't pry into that very much, but yeah, they do recognise that. As for the motives, like why would someone like the speaker kill off one of his lackeys? Plain and simple, the party just seemed a way more valuable resource than this like jumped up Jorga. What's more valuable? Just some political lackey, or these three very resourceful adventurers? Who seems better to have on your side? Of course, is going to choose the party. And that, I think that was pretty much it. I had to end it there because I had to go out, and that was about it really. That was where I stopped the session, and they left the room, and they were going to decide what to do next. I apologise if I've forgotten something there. If so, I might just add it to the start of the next session. I don't think I have. I'll be interested to see what they do next. So there are some options. They can of course go to Bremen, where they have heard about this wizard tower that has just kind of popped out of nowhere, a bit like that quest in in Witcher 3 in Skellige, where that wizard tower just shows up. I really hope they go to Bremen, mainly because one, they can start getting some Thrakari kind of threads come in, because there is they are about, at least some of them are about there, and the Wizard Tower is the home to one of my favourite NPCs that is in every one of my campaigns. It's Rajizar, who's kind of like a tabaxi, a black tabaxi, and he basically, the tower is kind of like a TARDIS, if you will, and this Raz kind of character is kind of like a god in many ways, but he doesn't know he's a god. It's kind of like me interjecting myself into the game, and he has like a magic shop. And I'm really eager to see them meet with this character. One of the player who plays Rayna, who's in my other campaign, already knows and has met Raz in the other campaign with his other character. There'll probably be questions of how is he up here and down there, and I'm just like, it's Raz, Anyway, once again, thank you everyone for listening. A bit of a longer one this time, kind of make up for the lack of last time and the lack of information we had in general in playing these games. But hopefully we're going to get, I think we've got another game coming up next week, which should be great. Or this week, depending on when this video goes up. It's on a Friday. Anyway, we plan to play. And thank you guys for listening. That was session 7, a task for the White Mask. And we will see you guys next time.